We are halfway through October, but this week I'm going to go off path and be doing a film that's not Halloween themed, but it's still one that I always watch during the season. Today we're taking a look at the 2009 dark fantasy masterpiece, Coraline, starring the vocal talents of Dakota Fanning, Terry Hatcher, Keith David, and Ian McShane. Based on the novel Coraline by Neil Gaiman, Gaiman was typing the name Caroline, but he made a typo and it came out Coraline. Gaiman says, "I looked at the word Coraline and knew it was somebody's name. I wanted to know what happened to her," which inspired him to write the novel. The film was supposed to be live action, with Dakota Fanning playing the lead. When the decision came down to make it stop animation instead, Fanning was asked if she still wanted to provide the voice of Coraline. She said yes and grew even more excited when she saw what Coraline was going to look like. Coraline Jones and her parents move into an old mansion, the Pink Palace, that has been divided up into individual apartments. Her parents struggled to complete their gardening magazine, so Coraline is often neglected. While out exploring, she runs into a black cat and the owner's grandson, Wyborn Wybie Lovat. Wybie leaves Coraline an old button-eyed rag doll that he found in his grandmother's trunk that resembles her. While exploring the house, Coraline discovers a small door that is unlocked with a button-shaped key. Upon opening the door, she sees that it's all bricked up. Later that night, Coraline is woken up by a mouse, who leads her through a door to a brighter, more vibrant version of the house. Coraline meets her other mother and other father, more attentive versions of her mom and dad except for one thing: they both have buttons for eyes. John Linnell provided the voice for the other father during this song. The band They Might Be Giants wrote 10 songs for this movie, but a change in tone from a musical to a darker tone meant that all but one song was cut. They sit down for dinner and the other parents tell Coraline that they are happy she's finally home. This kind of creeps out Coraline, and she tells them that she needs to head back home and go to bed. They take Coraline to her bedroom, and it's filled with magical toys and a picture of her friends from Michigan that can converse with her. She falls asleep and wakes back up in her own world. During breakfast, Coraline tells her parents what's behind the door, and they blow it off as a dream. Her mother tells her to go visit the neighbors and tell them about the dream as a way to get her out of the house so that way they can work. Here we meet her neighbors, Sergei Babinski, a gymnast who owns a mouse circus, and April Spink and Miriam Forcible, retired burlesque actresses. They all give Coraline cryptic messages to stay away from the little door. She runs into Wybie, who tells Coraline about his grandmother's twin sister who disappeared as a child. That night, Coraline visits the other world again. There she meets the other Wybie, a mute version of him. They see a grand performance from the other Babinski's mouse circus. She wakes back up in the real world again. After a boring shopping trip with her mother, when they arrive back home, she leaves Coraline home alone by herself. She decides to make another trip to the other world. After lunch, she runs into the black cat, who is able to speak in this other world. He tries to warn her of this world, but Coraline disagrees and thinks this world's great and the other mother's great as well. She visits the other Spink and Forcible, where she watches a performance by them. The other mother tells Coraline she can live there forever, but she has to sew buttons into her eyes. Coraline freaks out and rejects the offer and runs off to bed. The next morning, Coraline wakes up and she's still in this other world. She demands to go home, and the other mother transforms into this monstrous version of herself, imprisoning Coraline. There she meets the ghost of the other mother's victims, including Wybie's great aunt. They reveal that Beldam used the same doll Coraline has to spy on them and use her unhappiness to lure them to this world. When they accepted her offer, she trapped their souls. Coraline promises to free them, and the other Wybie helps her escape back to the real world. Coraline finds her parents missing, kidnapped by the Beldam. Spink gives Coraline her lucky Adder Stone. She returns back to the other world with the black cat. Coraline proposes a game to the Beldam. If she can find the souls of the children and her parents, they can all go free. If not, she'll sew the buttons into her eyes herself. Using the stone, Coraline finds the kids' souls, but with each soul she finds, part of the world disappears. With only the living room remaining, the Beldam turns into a human spider. One of the ghost children warns Coraline that even if she succeeds, the Beldam will go back on her word. Seeing her parents trapped in a snow globe, Coraline tricks the Beldam into unlocking the door, then throws a cat at her. Coraline grabs the snow globe and escapes through the door and closes it, cutting off the Beldam's hand in the process. Coraline's parents reappear in the real world with no memory of what happened. Later that night, the ghost children appear and warn her that the Beldam will never stop looking for the key. Deciding to drop the key down the well, Beldam's severed hand attacks her. Wybie arrives and smashes her hand with a large rock. They then toss a key and the pieces of the hand into the well and see what's shut. The next day, Coraline and her parents, who have finally finished their catalog, host a party for their neighbors. Wybie introduces his grandmother to Coraline, and Coraline prepares to tell her about her sister. The story has a very Alice in Wonderland feel to it. Another world filled with adventure, glorious sights, and unimaginable horrors. It even starts off kind of the same. Instead of a rabbit leading Alice to the hole, it's a mouse who leads Coraline to the door. But after that, Gaiman makes it his own. This is one of those movies I wish I had as a child. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't cheated out or anything. I had A Nightmare Before Christmas, which I debated doing this month, but decided to hold off until the other holiday that movie is famous for comes around. Now, if you haven't seen this movie because you think it's just for kids, I really wish you would reconsider. Yes, it's made for kids, but don't let that stop you. Neil Gaiman is a masterful storyteller who wrote this with characters and elements that children can relate to and adults can remember and possibly kind of take something away from. Check it out.